So we're good now?
Yep, we're up and up.
Hey, what's going on? We are back. We had some technical difficulties. I'm sorry about that. That's like 2 episodes out of like, what did we do?
Like out of like probably like 30 episodes we've done, where well, no, probably
50, 50,
15.
50 episodes, too. That's not a bad average. I'll take that. If that was baseball, I would be making $1 billion.
Yeah, right.
If I hit two for, what is it, 48 for 50. If I hit 48 for 50, I'd be making $1 billion.
Right,
So,
exactly.
so we're back, and we were into the conversation. We're going to get back to that. We're just going to pick up. But first, I'd like to introduce our special guest. We got Dave from the Perception is Reality podcast. We just did his podcast. We had a great time. What'd we go, Dave? Like an hour and a half over there?
Oh, it was like almost 2 hours, I thought.
It was like an hour and 45. It was a typical episode because I'm a yapper. I warned you guys ahead of time. But
I
yeah,
warned you guys.
You're-
hour and 45.
We're a yapper. Why don't you tell us just a little bit about your podcast before we jump in?
Sure. So Perception is Reality. Perception is Reality is the podcast where I like to talk to other people to learn what their realities are like of a certain thing that happened. So if there's or what their I like them to talk about the reality that might be different than the perception people might have. So, for example, I talked to a person who has a chronic pain illness, and she doesn't exhibit it, but she's in pain all the time because of a car accident. So she's an invisible illness advocate, and so people are constantly judging her just based on the way she looks, but inside she's in constant pain. So her reality is much different than the perception. Another episode, I talked to my friend Jeremiah Craig.
Mm-hmm.
He loves cowboy boots. He's
Oh,
always loved he's always loved wearing cowboy boots. So he talks about how in the Pacific Northwest, he was in Seattle.
Mm-hmm.
People judged him harshly because they thought he was a conservative, one of those. He's a white male. He was a white male Republican, and he was obviously a racist.
because he wore
And
cowboy boots.
just because he wore cowboy boots, and we talk about that and how like his reality is like, dude, I sincerely I just like cowboy boots. I mean, they're cool. They go with everything. I really like them. Plus, he's a folk artist. Like he's a touring folk artist
So
with an
he's
acoustic.
pretty much he's got an excuse, is what you're saying. He's got an excuse. He's got a
I mean,
license to carry.
I'm just saying. I mean, if anybody can pull it off, I couldn't imagine JC wearing anything but cowboy boots. So those are just two examples. We've talked about racism, we talked about divorce, we talk about forgiveness. Like I mean, I've got 2 seasons. There's a bunch of episodes, so
Mm-hmm.
there's an episode for everybody. Um, and again, I like to talk to the people who are in those situations, who are living whatever they're living day to day, and ask them to explain what is it really like, because this is what everybody's perception is over here in the out in the world. Tell us what it's like, and you'll find out that it's usually not what you think.
Right, and that brings us to our question. I'm going to skip around our little question thing since we had that mishap. It's going to take, and you just brought up a point that directly goes right to one of our questions. It's like the presumption of our reality. Like you said, we don't know what's going on with something. We're looking at somebody and we're making our own conclusions based on the reality that we know. And it can be grouped together if you, because I guess that's where they come with the word group, how they pair things and group things, because a lot of people have the same perceptions of things based on, is it something like, what point do you think that people, it's not because of what was instilled in them by their parents, where their perception comes from, that they start making their own decisions on perspective or perceptions? Or do you think that ever happens?
Well, it depends on the individual. So it's a lesson, and this is kind of one of the underlying tones of the podcast, is that I can have a conversation with somebody I've never met before.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've actually only known 2 or 3 guests out of the 100 episodes or whatever I've got up there,
Mm.
and I can legitimately have an innocent, brand new conversation with a complete stranger, and not picking up my phone, not looking at whatever, like an honest to goodness conversation. We can talk about a difficult topic. We might agree. We might violently agree, depending on who I'm talking about. When you get really excited about something,
Yeah.
or we might disagree. But I like to think I'm respectful if there's a difference of opinion, because I want to learn why the person is the way they are. So to answer your question, it really depends on if the person wants to acknowledge that there might be something they can learn, and what they know to be true may not be true. Like, for example, the person that cut you off this morning that was going really quick,
Hmm.
obviously that person's a jackhole, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
You could say it, jackass.
All right, I didn't know what
Yeah.
kind of,
We're,
whatever.
Hey,
we're
you
not
can
a
say
this
whatever on
this
here.
isn't a Christian Minecraft
We
server. That's
All
all I'm
right, all right.
saying.
we set the
Okay.
bar so low that you got to really say something horrible for it not to
Yeah,
work
All
on
right.
right,
here.
And then even
that's
and
fine.
if you did, we would grill you live on the show. So if you said something
I,
that crazy, but I don't
that
think you
would be
will.
cool. So
Right.
I doubt I will, but I might just to throw a boomerang or a wrench right
Right.
at you.
Monkey wrench, yeah.
So yeah, whatever. So that person, we don't know. Literally, we don't know what that person is going through. We don't know if they had a passenger that was bleeding to death and they were desperately trying to get to the hospital.
Hmm.
We don't know if there was somebody who was trying to have a baby in there, like, oh, whatever. We don't know if they were just legitimately late, not thinking. They were like, I'm going to get fired when I get there, or if they're what we perceive them to be is just an inconsiderate another driver. We don't know. We really, at the end of the day, we don't know. But we
Hmm.
make an assumption based on all of the learnings that we've had in life.
Right.
And then that presents itself. That person is this.
And I
Right.
think that's a lot of core. I think to me, like what I've learned about going through life of what I've went through, I had many like football coaches, teachers, all that. I always, took things from different things, parents, and I knew there was a lot of things that I was. You want to think your parents, father, mother is like superheroes, but there's that day when the glass breaks and you shatter, and you be like, wait a minute, they're not perfect. So it makes you question everything they told you. So I think that's where I come up with like where around the age of it is. Like I think it would have to be around the adolescent age where people start to question what their parents are saying and maybe break some of them core beliefs they were taught and start learning things from themselves. Even though because you're getting it from somewhere else. You're going to get it
Well,
from either a teacher, a coach, or a friend. And I think you just go through life doing that over and over until you get set in your ways and say, I'm not changing it no more. I'm stuck here with this reality.
I want to believe you, and I like your optimism, but I'm a little bit more pessimistic about it because I
Okay,
believe
shoot.
in those situations when you look back, those things that you're changing your opinion on are typically against an authority figure, whether it be a parent, a coach, or whatever. It's not necessarily something of a manner of just as simple as trying to place yourself in somebody else's shoes. What is that person driving that car like a complete idiot doing?
Hmm.
We
Hmm.
don't know. Like, unless you actually saw them and you knew what they were doing, you don't know. So that's a little bit different than um, like, for example, um, growing up, my father had a lot to say about every single race that there was, including our own Italian heritage. He just pooped on everything, just pooped on everything. There
Hmm.
was no good. Everybody was a jackass. Like,
Hmm.
Hmm.
human. I grew up learning from him. Human beings suck. However, the one favor my dad did was like, look, I'm an ass. Don't be like me. I can hate everybody. You need to learn how to like and get along with everybody. I'm
Well,
I'm I'm condensing that for time, but that's basically the short of it. Like, he
He was
just
trying to
said,
break
self-aware.
the
He was
cycle.
he was aware that he was the way he was, and
correct.
and he was like, okay, I want to take you on to that. Now finish what you're going to say. Sorry, and then
No, I'm just I mean
He was
just
just, go
just
ahead,
so
bro.
everybody knows about dad. Like,
oh,
there is not anybody that dad wouldn't give the shirt off his back, and he had friends. He still has really good friends of every race, color, creed, religion, you name it. I
It
don't know
was
why
just a
he's
time, but there was a time. Let's be honest. If it was
yeah,
your pops probably what around like almost close to 80, somewhere around
yeah,
there.
he was, yeah.
yeah,
Different time back then, where that's the kind of talk that was going, and then it sounded like he was trying to break that cycle.
yeah,
He was trying to break the cycle, even
Yeah.
though he still would bring over everybody. But so my point is, like, these little things, like, you have to be willing to acknowledge that there's something there that this somebody else is going through, and I think it boils down to empathy, right?
hmm,
Yes.
So can you be empathetic or sympathetic for somebody else? Can't you have that ability, and then do you want to learn from it?
Hmm.
Otherwise, we end up, and I'm going to make a jump. So I'm jumping across the
okay.
Grand Canyon
I'm
here.
watching you. It's
Okay.
impressive.
So this is where we end up politically today, right? You've got the Grand Canyon, you've got one side on one belief on one side and one belief on this side, and there's a chasm. And I firmly believe that these people don't have the empathy or the sympathy enough to really look across and say, well, one, we're not that different. Two, we do have a lot in common. And three, you know, why do you have this opinion of X? Why do you have this opinion of Y? They're not physically capable right now of having an adult conversation. And I think that's what happens when people don't possess those skills. Again, I could be talking shit, I don't know, but that's just my thought.
Well, I actually watched a speech that someone gave for a graduation, a college graduation, and it entailed about being societally conscious. And what that entails is what you're saying is that being able to take yourself out of your individual perspective and put yourself in the shoes of someone else in that situation and say, how would I act? How would I want to be treated? And they say empathy, put myself in the place, put you in the place of me, sort of thing, right? And when you sit down and you break that down, I think it's easier to come to that side. And I actually, even though our show is called Bridging the Gap, and I agree there are people that are on both sides and they're looking over. The thing is, it's really only on a couple issues, and then it's mostly gray medium, if it will, from white to black, where most people kind of fall within the spectrum, and they're just a little darker or lighter on each side of that. Now, we're not saying about race, obviously.
Yes, we are.
But I'm just saying,
You racist.
He's going to start to race more. All right, guys. Well, like you thought earlier was bad. It's about to get real here in a second. But but I really believe it believes in a medium. And the thing is, though, you're right on those certain issues. People want to be way over here and way over there, and rather look at the other perspective. Because I've actually had someone who posted something, and it was along the lines of, if you're someone who believes in an abortion, you should kill yourself. You should die if you believe in it, right? And I was sitting there thinking to myself, and I'm not asking for you guys' opinion right this second or anything, and we don't have to really dive into that wormhole if no one wants to go there because it's pretty heavy. But all I was saying was, someone said that, and they're like, they don't want to hear your opinion. They don't want to debate. They even said it in that status they posted. They don't want any debate. They don't want to talk about it. Even though when you post something publicly, doesn't that invite people to come in and maybe retort what you have to say? So I'm kind of curious on what you think of that particular issue there, like when people publicly put their opinion out there and then act as if they can say whatever, and then they don't want anybody to debate them.
So, well, I'll just give you my opinion. Like, personally, I don't have a uterus. So, I mean, while I feel, as long as my partner involves me in the conversation and there's a conversation, then
Bingo.
that's between us. But ultimately, female health, I don't possess a uterus. So,
Right. It's up to her. It's really up to her. As long as,
I mean,
like you said, she
if it's
has
if
the
it's
conversation with you.
if it's my child, I want to be part of the conversation, but I'm not going to judge anybody else whether they want to or whether they don't, because this is our whatever. But
Right.
now onto that other portion of it. What was the question?
Oh yeah, just what do you think of people who publicly put out their
Oh,
opinion and then say, but I don't want anybody to talk about it. I don't want anybody to debate it. What do you think of people that do that?
I think that they're basically just being either bullies or cowards. There's only two ways that can go, because if you're going to post something, first of all, nobody's opinion. Please, somebody, show me somebody whose opinion was changed because of social media.
Mm-hmm.
I'll wait. Oh wait, you're not going to be able to find any, because social media is geared towards um, confirmation bias. So
Right.
you're going to get the same things that it perceives that you like. So you're not going to ever see the other side of an argument. But in general, people who post that stuff, they're either a coward because they're trying to shut the conversation off. They're like, this is my opinion, you'll never change it. I don't want to ever have a conversation. My head is firmly planted up my ass. Then there's the people who post that and they want to argue. They're like, don't come at me, but they're really underlined in font 6 is like, come at me, bro.
They want
And
they
then
want
they're
the smoke.
answering every
And then they're
What's up?
responding to
every comment.
Right.
Yeah.
So what's the point? You're not going to have, you're not setting the situation up for an intelligent debate. And that's the thing that I think we're lacking today, is this innocent conversation and the debate. Because you can have a debate, we can talk, we can agree, we can disagree, But as long as we're willing to talk, have a conversation, it's two-way. When in this world, we're trained to listen to respond, not listen to
True.
learn.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Listen, seek first to understand, then to be understood. That's the motto I live by. Like, because then you can really refute something. I mean, Coach knows. I'm kind of like a Facebook troll in a sense where, like, if I
He
see
likes that
something,
shit, man.
I'll come and I'll post some stuff. But I get in political discussions with people, right? And I'll be against conservatives, right? And then they'll put me in this box, the straw man, where they'll say you love Obama and you're a liberal and all this stuff. And then I'll say things I disagree with, and then they'll stop talking to me. Like on the Democratic side, like I'll say bad things Obama did, and they won't even talk to me because it's almost like they can't possibly comprehend that somebody could hold the middle position. We had somebody on the show once when we talked about illegal immigration, and we were just saying, no, we agree that people should come here legally, but I think the way we're doing it should be different. And he wanted to paint us in a box where he was saying, no, you're either this or you're that, and it's almost like he couldn't at first comprehend that there was a middle ground somewhere. That you could hold that position.
That's the problem too. That is the key problem right there. The middle ground. People don't understand. That's about having a conversation. Like possibly you can't think in your head that like sitting across from some, even though we want to think that and our egos get busted when we're wrong, you know what I mean? You feel some type of way, but you got to eat that up and still listen. Like I cannot sit across from you and think in my brain that I know everything because I'm sitting here having a conversation with you. If I knew everything, I would be on the best place on the planet.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean? Not having this conversation
I would
with
have the
you.
winning lotto
Yeah.
numbers, and
Well,
And I think
yeah.
that's what a lot of people do. They sit and they build that off of that, where it's more of an ego thing, where it's more of like I can't admit to that I'm wrong about this thing, or they can't. You see that a lot in today's with like I'm gonna like the Trump supporters. Like they will not. He is actual fact saying that he could go out in the street and shoot somebody in the head, and he will not lose a percentage point. I truly believe that at this particular point. That those people will find an excuse to support what he's doing, no matter what he does. I truly believe that.
Yeah, I think there's a certain subsection of that demographic that would, and I think there's a certain other subsection where he would. I think he would go down a point. Because if he didn't, then I don't know I don't know that I
Well,
could look anybody in the eye ever again.
I'm exaggerating a whole
I
bunch
know,
when
I
I'm
know.
saying
You
that.
do what I do. We like.
I like this hand motion. It looked like he was like either wafting,
So-
like he made some ramen noodles. He was like,
Yeah.
like that.
So when you find yourself in this situation, again with a guest,
Mm-hmm.
and you want to assess their intelligence, ask them this one simple question: when's the last time you changed your opinion?
Hmm.
Yeah, that's true.
And then I'm curious, okay, because you've asked it, I'm sure. What is usually the response? How do you gauge the response? I'm kind of curious now, because you're telling our viewers like basically a little trick. So I kind of want to
Yeah,
know.
everybody should know if they really want to know what the other person is and how their intelligence rises. Because when we're talking about the self-awareness, you're talking about upper levels of cognitive thinking.
Right.
Mhm.
Somebody who's willing to change their opinion about a subject is somebody who's willing to analyze things. They're willing to talk and move forward. So that's really how it all works. And you guys can Google it. There was a study done recently on that, and it boils down to when's the last time you changed your opinion. Um,
I think to be honest, like at this particular time, I'll just go right back to the Trump thing. In no way am I a supporter, but I changed my opinion on saying I'm not just going to denounce. What am I for? The country doing well, or do I just don't like this person?
Mm-hmm.
Now let me pick
Yeah.
out the things that are going well. I normally would not do that in my years. I'd be
right.
like, screw everything about that person.
Yeah.
But it's more or less of trying to find that thing in there to, I guess, to say, like, I'm not going to sit here and just ride that boat without saying, let me focus on something that in there that is well and focus on that instead of
Yeah.
focus on jumping on board and just crashing and burning with everybody else.
well, there's another saying, and I think I warned you guys about this. My fortune cookie tidbits is that there's another one that goes: you may not respect the person, but you have to respect their position, and
Mm.
that position can be hierarchical, like President Trump or President Obama, depending, or President Carter, Bush, Clinton, Bush, whatever. all 20 Bushes that were presidents, Reagan, who fill in the blank. You may not respect that person, but you have to respect that they are the president. There's certain things that come with that. Now, also, that comes into somebody who's got a differing opinion on a matter, right? You don't have to respect them or their, you don't have to respect doesn't mean agreement. But you have to respect their position. If you don't, then you'll never be able to listen and learn.
Yeah.
Because they have a differing view.
I was going to say, to add to that, you can't understand, because you can't, when I've had discussions, because I'll say this now, and then we could add on to it. I'm an atheist. I don't believe that there is a God, right? And I have a lot of discussions with people that are religious, and the thing is like, if you automatically say that they're this thing, right, without actually listening to what their particular belief is, because I find that many people have different interpretations, beliefs, and whatnot of the Bible, Quran, etc., right, of how they want to perceive it, then you have to really listen. You have to listen to what they are saying, and then you have to refute that if that's what you're going at. I mean, or talk to them about that, because I think if you're having a discussion in any way, shape, or form, the minute you start talking past them as if there is some other thing that you've in your mind thought of them as, you've lost them. They're not going to listen to you because you're not really talking to them. And
but you're not respecting their position.
Exactly. And that's what it is. Instead, you have straw manned their position, and they're like, well, that's not even who I'm talking about. Unless, of course, this has happened too. People demonstrate, they say they're not one thing, but they have demonstrated they're another. That happens sometimes.
Here's a good question then. Should in saying that, should I think the school curriculum's messed up all around. Like, I think there's a lot of things that could be taught at a young age that help the perception of what people see. Is if they're taught things outside of their home that maybe gave them their core beliefs, they're taught things how to deal with public and other people. Should we say that maybe kids should, in high school, you should have to take a debate class?
I definitely agree. There's two things that I advocate, really. I mean, and sincerely. One is all kids should just take debate, and they shouldn't wait until high school.
Okay.
Number two, kids should take etiquette.
Yeah, etiquette, yeah.
Those two things are lost.
Because it would save a lot of problems.
It would, because in a conversation, right, even as we're talking between the three of us, all three of us, and I remember from my show, we would, if we could, we'd be in the same room. We'd be talking all at the same time, but we're respecting our listeners. There's that respect. We're respecting our listeners, and we're giving each other time to talk. That comes with an etiquette and that debate. Like, there's an etiquette in the conversation flow. And people have lost the etiquette, and they don't know how to debate. So debate isn't necessarily, it's not, some people think debate's about arguing. Debate's not about arguing. It's about listening to the other person's position, and then thinking about your own and how you're going to respond. But you have to listen first, because you have to take what they said and respond to that. You can't make your point over here, and then they've said something, and you're making your point, and you're having two different conversations. You're like this.
Yeah, you're not even hearing it. You're just trying to fire off.
Thank you, Dev. You're talking past each other, and that's no good. So those two things, and also I think all right, since you've got me on my school soapbox, I also believe that we should be teaching our children language from an early age instead of waiting until high school.
Middle school, yeah, because I started learning Spanish in 6th grade.
Elementary. Kids need to learn Spanish in elementary. The Spanish, French, whatever whatever we can afford as a country, they need to learn that starting in elementary school.
Yeah, no, I totally agree, because there's research that shows that your cognitive, like, language learning abilities are very active when you're younger. And that's why a lot of these people, like, over in Europe and stuff, they can memorize and know languages, and they speak multiple languages like English, French, Dutch, because I've had many multiple exchange students come through my school, and they can speak English perfectly with a little bit of an accent, right? You can tell they're not from around, obviously, but they can speak English perfectly well to where you understand it. And if they were talking Dutch, you wouldn't even know that they were talking Dutch. Like, you were like, what are they even speaking? You know?
Exactly.
But they speak both languages, 3 languages fluently.
But that's the hubris of the United States of America, right? Like, we expect everybody to come here and speak speak English. I almost said Spanish. Speak English. Speak English, damn it. Why do I have to press 2 for Spanish? Why do I have, whatever? And then you go over to a different country, and I've seen this. I mean, I don't. I always try to learn as much about the language as I am when I'm in that country.
Right.
And I always learn a couple phrases. It's like, forgive my accent. I'm just learning. Do you speak English? And then they usually again, it's that respect, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing my best in their language. But there are other people who travel and they're just go into a shop and they're just straight up speaking English like they expect everybody to know it.
Right,
You
exactly.
would think to be rude, because you can tell when somebody is like, clearly they don't have no English to speak. You know what I mean? They might, they're trying to best to get you to understand something. You can tell when it's that person, or a person's just being like, I'm speaking Spanish, no habla española, because I don't want to answer what you're asking me. There's two different phases of that. Or they're talking in their how they talk at their house when they're out communicating with each other. You can tell the difference in those things. You really can.
And I was going to piggyback off what you just said, because there's a very good point in that, is that, again, that comes back to that common theme of talking past each other. Even if there's a language barrier, there's still, to me, no excuse. Because I've seen people who've talked about their travels and stuff, and saying that people very quickly, because, because people don't speak the language you speak doesn't make them dumb or illiterate. They very quickly pick up that you can't speak their language, and you can very verbally, or not verbally, but like using hand motions, pointing at things, gesturing, know where the things are, and they will, with a smile on their face, tell you, oh, okay, are you looking at the bathroom? Yes, Puerto ir al baño, over here.
And I think it's a time thing, though, too. We're so time crunched right now. Like, I mostly see the problem when you're in like a place of like a store or something like that, and somebody can't really articulate what the person at the cash register or checking them out is getting frustrated, because and the people in line, because it just starts that frustration because the person can't articulate quick enough, and we're talking about a time sensitive job right there. So I see a lot of that confusion in certain stores where people just bug out, but all you need to really do is like maybe like shift the direction to somebody else that maybe that person can help, because there's usually except Walmart, because there's only like one cashier in Walmart, and there's like self-service. So, but you can usually figure out a way, maybe say, hey, step aside for a second while I knock this out real quick and come back to you. There's usually a way to get around that.
Yeah, like I understand Spanish much better than I can speak it, because I lost speaking ability. I took it for many years in high school and in college even. Mm-hmm. And then I moved to Hawaii, and nobody speaks Spanish in Hawaii. So I didn't speak it, but I still understand a good portion of it. Sorry, I got a message that something froze there. I think you guys are back. Or my picture looks like it's frozen. I don't know.
Yeah,
your picture froze.
Did you click something or open something when it came up?
I didn't. It just said, Devin, you did something. It said, Devin is using a device that could record or broadcast this call.
Oh, I'm going to have to come back there at the producer desk. So, go ahead, you gentlemen, handle yourselves.
What happened?
All right. So anyway.
Press some buttons.
So, Coach, so like in our neighborhood, we live in a new neighborhood, and there's a lot of construction. So we're in Southeast Texas.
So a lot of Mexicans.
A lot of Mexicans. And their food trucks come through our neighborhood because of all the construction.
Right.
Well, the one, El Torbellino, has the best tacos.
Right.
There's a couple other trucks, but I'm gonna plug El Torbellino.
Okay. Send them an invoice.
So my wife and I, we like to go to the food trucks. It's usually just the construction workers that go there, and they all speak Spanish and everything. And the owner of El Torbellino really does not speak English at all. So I did my best to try to order the tacos. It wasn't working. So the guy behind us in line was like, very nice. Can I help you? You're right. There are people that will help. So I'm just agreeing with you. There are people that will help. He helped us order, and we got the better salsa because
he could speak. Verde, he could speak the language to get it to get the barrier. And I think that's what it is too. Like a lot of perception of what people are saying. Like we just got done talking about on one side of the canyon. Like if it's not that way, there's no reason I should take time out of my day because that's what this side of the canyon is saying. If you need to be in this country, you need to speak this country, this language. Like how we know they're not busting their ass at home trying to figure it out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they're just doing their best at this particular time.
Okay. Well, I think it's coming back. David? Are you doing something?
Yeah, I'm trying to turn my camera back on.
Okay. Yeah, because it might just need reset or something. Because I went and looked at it from our end, and there's nothing that was wrong with it. It's just for some reason the projection come out that way, like it froze up on your side.
Yeah,
And that
yeah,
happens sometimes because Skype is honestly sometimes the bane of existence. But I've had people tell me Zoom's no better. So I mean, what can you really do?
Zoom is way better.
You think? Because I've had
Yeah.
people say that it's not, but that's on me. I haven't used Zoom, so But regardless,
It's your perception of which one's better.
yeah, my perception. It's my perception of which
it's
one's
both.
better.
It's all of our perception. I
Right.
mean, I don't know. I don't care. Like, which one works?
Yeah, which one's working right now? Yeah, exactly.
All right, so let's see. I don't know if the camera came back on. The camera now?
Nope, it's still not back on. If you go to settings, like your Skype settings,
Yeah.
and then click camera source, it should click back to the camera you're using, the webcam.
Yeah, no, it's got integrated camera there, and it won't let me click on turn video on. Like all of a sudden it went to like you're recording, and then it was like, oh hell no. And
Is it using another source? Is there another tab or something open on your computer that the webcam could be active in?
Nope.
Oh goodness, now we're all stretched out. What's going on, David? You're cursed. I have a feeling. Are you cursed, David? Maybe it's just our perception.
Stranger things have happened. I'm not gonna lie.
Okay. Well, while you're figuring out, I'm gonna go adjust our screen quick. Give me 1 second. Oh man.
Yeah, so like the camera should be on, and it keeps. This is so frustrating.
Yeah, I know. It's just the whole. You know what I mean? I don't know what's going on today. This has never happened to us before. Like never to this. So I don't know what's going on. It just wasn't with the podcast gods were not with us tonight.
Right.
Apparently
it's
not.
Because I said the A word. I said atheist. And they were like, no.
Oh yeah, I was gonna ask you, Dev. Have you ever? I know you're an atheist now because you mentioned it a couple times.
Mhm.
Is that like being a vegan? Like you have to let everybody know you're a vegan? No, I'm just teasing. All vegans. I'm just kidding. Relax. Have you ever talked to anybody who's been dead for a significant amount of time?
Have I talked to someone who's been dead?
Yep.
No, never.
If you have the chance, talk to somebody who has been brought back, resuscitated. It's a fascinating conversation. I'm not going to give anything away because it says it's because I want you to do it, but it says it's on the integrated camera on here. The light's on. I don't know.
Yeah. So I'm saying, like, the only way observation I could do is hang up the Skype call and call back, but that would kind of be counterproductive. We had to start another podcast again. So
no, that would just. I don't want to do that to your
Yeah.
to your faithful fans. That would just.
I know. Like I said, if you go back and watch, we've had like 4 or 5 episodes straight of guests, pretty much for like this didn't happen. So like I said, like it's a freak thing. I don't know.
It happens, but what you were saying was like talking to the thing. I feel that same way as like that I would say about what the Bible actually is. Like, you know, a great story. Like when you said talk to somebody that actually did that, I think that's another stem from that, is saying like somebody said, hey, I saw lights, I saw this, and then that story just kept going and going and going and going. I feel that. I don't know, because when I go to sleep, we dream. We actually feel like we're in something specific, and then there's many a times I wake up out of my dream and thought, I really thought that happened. You know what I mean? Or I'm disoriented where I'm like, did that happen? I got to gather myself to say that. So I don't know if that could be, like you said, it definitely would be a fascinating, but how do we scale that? How do we know that person is really being like, this is what happened?
Go ahead, David, if you want to. Then I'll finish afterward. But I did want to add in and say to him about that is that he brings up a good point. But go ahead, David. Say what you're going to say, and then I'll follow up.
Have you read the studies where they have set up the emergency rooms and OR rooms?
I like that. Oh,
where they have the patients that have the out-of-body experiences that have died, and they can tell the whole scene of the room, but also hidden in the room someplace where no human can see it is a message, and they're able to say what the message is.
That's interesting, because I've read the polar opposite of those studies where they've done that and they can't do it. Like they'll go to like a heart surgeon room or something where the people are literally clinically dead to do the operation for several minutes or something, and then they don't have that experience where they can't tell them what's in the room or anything like that. So that's very interesting. And but here's the thing, David, that I like to say to people about these particular things. Even if, right, people were able to do that, right, you may have proved there's an afterlife, which again I don't know if maybe even that's a thing, because sure, but when I say atheist, I lack theism, meaning I don't believe in a God or some semblance of self resolves after the end of your life because of the actions or this other realm made by a God. And I think that those kind of things don't get you any closer to that conclusion. I'm very my epistemology is very not I guess material, where you're. And epistemology means how you know things, obviously, if you didn't. But how I look at things very objectively, where I say, like, I don't make any jumps of conclusions, or I go to Occam's razor. I'm a very honest person to say I don't know, but I don't profess or proclaim to know. I just simply do not believe. I am not convinced that God exists. That's pretty much my position on it.
Yeah, I wasn't trying to make the leap there, but I'm just saying that actually I was kind of to get you to talk to those people. It's just fascinating.
Oh, no
That
doubt.
Yeah, and I'm not. I mean,
I would talk to them just to hear their experience. But the thing is, for me, that could, because we're talking about perception, that could never confirm it for me, because that's their perception of what it's like, like when they died or whatever. But does that mean that goes on for eternity? Is it just the chemical release of things in the brain? Have no idea, right? And you could look at studies, and like you said you cited studies, and I can go look for them if you have them or whatever. But you cited studies, I'll go look at those. But I've also seen studies that have done the complete polar opposite, said the against what you're saying. That there are people that they will set it up in not an ER, but like a heart. Like an actual heart surgeon's place, and over the course of several months, run that test and say, hey, did you see? Do you know what this is in the room? Whatever, and they don't have it. So again, that's me personally saying that I can never really go off of just objectively going off someone's experience to confirm something. That's my thing on it. So if they proclaim they've seen it and that's thing, great, but that can't confirm it for me.
yeah, no, that's definitely fair, and I'm not saying that I want you to be convinced, but I want you to talk to those people because it's just
Be skeptical. That's the whole reality I live. For me, I like being skeptical. I like asking questions. Like I want
Well,
to
there's a
know.
difference between curiosity and being skeptical. I mean, there are some things that I would agree you're skeptical on, like God, you're like, eh. But mostly, I would say you're 98% curious and 2% skeptical.
Yeah, I guess is what you're saying, right?
Which curiosity is a great thing. There's a reason why a 4-year-old asks the question, 5,000 questions a day.
Yeah, because they just want to know things. They're taking in the
They just
world as
want to
they
know
see it.
things. They want to learn things. That's their job. That and to eat and poop. I mean,
Eat
whatever.
and poop, and then you have to clean up after them. My sister has 4 kids right now, and she's had them over the past 5 years. So what a journey she must be going through. She's gonna be really enjoying her late 30s, I'm sure.
I'm sure she will.
Yeah.
Right. So okay. So yeah, we had to start over and everything we were talking about before, and I think there's the key that we were talking about that might be able to help somebody in this realm about. We've had, of course, we had the bad accident yesterday. Rest in peace to everybody that was in that helicopter that passed. Sad situation, and we kind of brought up the statistics saying that when something like that happens, I kind of believe in the smaller scale of it, if somebody passes in my family, I believe the majority of my family is gonna be good to one another. They're not going to be arguing about things. They're going to be calmer. Do we think that happens when it comes to something like a bigger celebrity or whatever like that it calms the world down? Things are more calm, people, because they might not know that person, but if you know a celebrity and you believe in them and they've been we're using Kobe as an example, again, rest in peace, but he touched people without knowing them because he gives them motivation and all that stuff. Do you think that would calm down the masses of the people that he affected, that maybe might have been doing, maybe something might have happened, their energy might have caused something for them to do something, but that calmed it down? Is that something that would be happening that you would
I,
think of?
I do believe that people who he impacted and would be capable of reverence, and they would calm down. I'm using air quotes. You can't see me because my camera light's on, but
I'll
the
do it for you.
things,
Say calm down.
right, calm down. Um, because they're paying respect. They're being respectful. Again, we're going back to that word, and they're being reverent about his passing and the other individuals impacted. Like that's a tragedy that unfortunately happens all too often. And I lived in Hawaii for a while, and there's a ton of helicopter accidents all the time, all over the world in tourist areas because the helicopters aren't really maintained. So,
Mm.
we would see that on the news all the time living in Hawaii. Like there was an accident here, there was a crash here, fatality here. And I'm not trying to be dismissive of any of those. I'm just trying to make my point. Um, so, yes, there would be some reverence. Will it be universal? No. Like you said, when Martin Luther King passed or when JFK passed, I mean, you've got those two people were so universal.
Right.
And but don't get me wrong, I'm not saying any disrespect to Kobe, but I don't think that he was universal. So it's not going to be a complete shutdown. Like everything is just going to come to a screeching halt. There is going to be a lot of people, a lot of people at work today, were very much impacted by his passing, and then the greater span of the other people impacted.
Well, when you okay, so when we're saying universal, like I think he was universal. I think it's more what he was doing. Like his impact was in the sports world. No, they're not going to make that universe. He was universally affecting anybody that had competition in them. It didn't matter if even if you had some kind of even if you were a racist athlete, you still looked at Kobe and said, "I need what he has," and you imitated that. Is what I mean by like is that what you mean by universal? Because I think of a
Well, what
president.
I mean by universal is like Martin Luther King and like John F. Kennedy, to use your earlier example.
Mhm.
Those are two people who had the national spotlight at a different level. Again,
Right.
I'm not trying to diminish Kobe's greatness. I mean, he's what, number 3 or 4 up there on the list of
Scoring.
scoring, I think.
Yeah,
Um,
he's up in
I
like
think,
top five.
yeah, didn't LeBron I think just passed him.
Yeah, LeBron passed him
But
Saturday, which was
yeah,
weird.
so but that and okay, I'll give you that maybe he's known throughout all the athletic community, but I mean, the athletic community spans from like track to hockey to
Badminton.
gymnastics to right. Badminton's a huge thing. I mean,
Right.
to the basketball community definitely knew him for sure. And I'm not
Mm.
trying to and again, he was one of those people that people knew of him, even
Mhm.
if they didn't watch basketball. But that doesn't mean that he impacted their daily life like somebody like. I don't think there's an individual alive at the time that Martin Luther King was alive that he didn't impact them one way or the other, good or bad.
Right.
They either, he impacted, he was just universal and he transcended. And I'm not saying Kobe didn't, because again, there's a lot of international basketball fans. I know
Mhm.
this because I'm a Rockets fan, and China backs us
Yeah,
because of
yeah. I
Yao Ming.
mean,
And,
yeah.
so, but I'm just saying that I think the subset is smaller, but I do understand what you're saying is that there's a difference in complexity between what Martin Luther King was accomplishing versus what Kobe was accomplishing, meaning like, ending racism versus being like the best basketball player. Again, I'm not diminishing. I
Oh,
feel like I'm like,
no, I totally agree. I just think it in the manner of like where we're at today with technology, that a lot of people like if like a lot of people outside of I think just looked at the determination and the messages that he had. Like that's being more transferable now than back in the day without the technology. I just think that I'm not nowhere saying that the level of like
mhm,
what they're what they were doing
yeah,
and the importance of it. I just think that like the way that technology is like we just seen. I don't know if you ever heard of the rapper Nipsey Hussle though. He was
yeah,
somebody that was so like underground. Nobody. He wasn't popular, but the whole world like kind of did what they're doing for Kobe at this particular point. because and then people didn't know how well, a lot of people didn't think that he was that well touching people, is basically what I'm saying. And I think Kobe hits on that line. I'm not saying comparing it to that either. I just think it's more, I think he's universal, but just not as universal as those guys, if that makes any sense. Because I
It does.
believe I believe everybody looks at that and says, even if like they use him in business, not the athlete, some people that aren't even, I listen to, I forget his name, but he's not a sports fan, but he looks at athletes' determinations like a Tom Brady, and they use that. They transfer that over to what they're doing, the determination they have and the hard work, those type of things. I think he's very universally known and, to respected in that form, outside of the sport of basketball.
Yeah, I'm not saying he's not universal. Okay, he's definitely well respected. But I forgot your original question.
I
Well, actually, the original question, and I will interject here, was more about, do we think people like Kobe, when they pass away, a celebrity, do they remind the world almost that, especially someone like Kobe, who's 41 years old, dies in a freak accident, right? Maybe not a freak accident, but an accident nonetheless. And that's just such a way to go. And does that some kind of effect remind us that how temporary and how fragile we really are, and that any minute could be our last, and rather we actually go out and we say, man, I got to go see my mom this week. I got to stop making beef with people so much. I got to clean myself up a little bit because, this tomorrow really isn't guaranteed for me. And I think that's where it stemmed. And then you guys kind of went into the levels of talking about, who really makes that impact last longer. That's where you guys start talking the universal. But to me, to answer the original question, I think would be, yeah, absolutely. I think celebrities do that. But the question that I bring to the table is, and it ties in, is how long, like in our eyes, because I have people around me, young people I graduated school with, went to school with, died.
Yeah.
I'm 22 years old. I've had 3-4 people I went to school with die, right? Dead. From whether it be drug overdoses or medical problems or accidents, whatever it might be. And sometimes, I not know again this record Kobe, but that hits me a lot harder. And I still keep those people with me because I knew them. I saw them in their face and they're no longer here no more, right? And we've all lost people. Yeah. And the thing is, though, is like even those people begin to fade after a while. So the thing that I think Coach was getting to is what's the impact we think of the direct thing of Kobe, and just giving off the examples, do we think how long is that going to last?
Not long.
Yeah.
People have very short memories.
Right.
So there's like the concepts you're discussing are very stoic in Stoic philosophy, and there's one key thing that Stoic philosophers would say, and that's memento mori, and that's remember you too shall die. And they really talk about that. And the message is similar to what you're saying, and what you're talking about in this question is, I could be a little nicer to everybody. I could spend more time with person X. I should be a little nicer. I should really try to understand more, be more empathetic because I'm going to die. And you know what? Caesar was buried in the same cemetery, and this is again another Stoic saying. He was buried in the same cemetery of the guy that shoot his horses.
Yeah, exactly. So it really doesn't matter like who you really. At the end of the day, your hole's going to be 6 feet down.
Exactly. Like
Well, I'm going to get buried. I'm sorry. I'm going to get buried at like in a tree thing, like those tree pods. I'm gonna have my body in one of those.
Too.
Yeah, and like grow up
in a tree. Yeah.
And then they're gonna name a tree after me.
Steal your pod, your body. They're gonna rob your grave out of the tree.
Yeah.
Yeah, but no, that's Devin. That's a very Stoic way of looking at it, and people don't think about their own mortality at all, and they should, because we all. I mean, that's the great equalizer.
I think it would humble you.
We're all going to die, and people need to, if they understand, like if we have nothing else in common, we have that. We are all three of us are going to someday die. There's nothing we can do about it.
Right on. And that's that's one of those things where I had a debate with some of my Christian friends that I thought this is actually very important. Is they said to me, well, what's the point of living if there is no afterlife, if there is no this, that, and the other thing? I said, it means everything that it means right now as it is as an existence. Like you are, we are, and regardless of what happens after, that's what's going to happen, right? And I sit there and say, so that actually to me makes everything in my life mean a little bit more, if that makes any sense. Just because every person I see, every moment I'm in, I got to breathe it in just a little bit more, because that might be the end. And it's a weird mindset to have at 22 years old, but that's the way I like to think and live, is in that sense. And you bring up a very good point, because bridging the gap style here in a really messed up death or taxes kind of way, Benjamin Franklin style, or was that Benjamin, or was it Thomas Edison? Who said that?
Death and taxes?
Yeah.
Like
That's
the only
Franklin.
things you're promised.
Franklin. Okay, I was right. I don't know why I had like a
Only thing, yeah.
But I'm saying, like, in a bridging the gap sense, like, that is one of the things that if none of us can agree on anything, at least there's that one thing that's in the table we can say that, and that's why I have to treat you like a human being, and I have to treat you with respect, because we're all here for a finite amount of time.
Well, we should, but we don't.
Yeah,
Exactly.
a lot of people
Which
don't.
is that's one of my life's internal struggles, is why we don't.
Right,
But,
and I think that's what it is. People are desensitized, especially in this time of era, to because, like, the perception, going with the perception thing, we always discuss this, like, why wouldn't people film something that's good when you're seeing negative stuff on social media all day? Why wouldn't you try to balance that out and cancel it? Now you're desensitized from anything that's good. You got people saying, "Oh, you're just filming that for
Clout.
Facebook likes." I don't care. To me, if you're doing something good and it changed one person to go and help somebody, isn't that a good thing? How can it?
We're trained. We're trained monkeys, all of us,
Yeah.
because media doesn't exist to give us information. It exists to sell advertising.
That's
They don't
crazy.
they don't really care about
We're
giving
selling
us
ads.
accurate information.
Yeah, that's true.
So you think about this. So what sensationalism sells? So over the years, you have to get more and more sensationalist. And it's the same. If you look at the presidential debates over the years, it gets more and more sensational, because our attention spans are short. We are 140 characters long people. We've always been that way. Twitter just exposed it.
Right.
We
Yeah,
have
it is.
very, very short attention spans.
And
And
they just made it easy to put that in effect every day.
sure. So if I have to get your attention, there's a couple ways I can do it. I can either show you some cleavage, or I can slap you in the face.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you know what? I find this interesting. I love, of course, I'm building a media production company, so this is something that'll be coming down the road. But films, I love movies, and I think movies are very captivating, because you could be sitting there, and I'm not sure why. I'm sitting there thinking to myself, how does it happen, right? Like, do you invest yourself in a story, and it just keeps repeating to the point where it reveals a little bit more of itself, and you become invested into it? And it's something that me to this day, I'm not really 100% sure what it is. But films can captivate me without putting jugs in front of my face and without someone hitting me in the mouth. And I don't know why. And I'm just going to throw this out here to you, David. Do you have an explanation? Do you think you know why movies would captivate? I mean, I don't know if they captivate you, but why they captivate?
Movies can captivate for a couple different reasons. So, like, for me personally, if it's a visual thing, so we're visual creatures. We see things, but we all see things differently. But a movie and it's all goes into, like, if you study the pop music, the songs have a hook.
Mm-hmm.
The song can suck, but if it's got a good hook,
Or
you're
a
in.
good beat.
You're
It's
in.
all.
So-
There's a chemistry to it, though. There's
So
there's an algorithm
with a movie,
to it.
right? With a movie, so you're captivated by a movie for probably there different reasons than we would be captivated by a movie. But there's movies. Let me ask you this: have you ever, like, are you captivated by every single movie you see, or are there times when you're just like, this is a pile of steaming dog food?
Yeah, but you know what's funny is even movies that are steaming pile of dog poop. Because I'm starting movie reviews.
Can we say shit, guys? We're grown.
No, it's hard
The
to.
fuck?
It's hard to. Listen. I gotta say this.
Uh,
We're white. Sometimes we say white
What
people.
does that have to do?
I think people we say shit and stuff, but like sometimes you just say
I'm
poop.
just used to being censored at work all day long, censored on my podcast and censored by my wife. So
Right, yeah. So we're not holding it against you. But I said poop, whatever. We'll roll with the punches.
He was
Go
just
for it. You're taking
he was
too
using
long
the
on this.
mirroring technique. It's fine. Go ahead.
Right.
Yeah, but for me, like a movie that captivates me, even bad movies, like I do movie reviews and stuff, I can sit there and laugh and chuckle at how silly some of the decisions were. And maybe that's part of it is because I know the back end of some things, and I'm reading into it. Like I'll be reading into things and it's invested me, it's captivating me, it keeps my mind working because I'm thinking about the technical, the practical, and then what I'm seeing on screen all at the same time as I'm watching the film, and then the writing and everything.
So you're seeing it at a different level, which is why you're captivated. Now, me, for example, like if my wife picks a movie, which she does 98% of the time, just because I don't want to go through that argument after, and that's just if you're listening, that's 27 years of marriage, and that's fine. This how success is compromised, but she'll fall asleep during the movie. Doesn't matter what's on, she always falls asleep. I won't change the channel. I have to see the movie through. Like I've committed to seeing. I don't care how stupid it is. I've committed to seeing that. I sit through it. I'm not captivated by it, but I feel like I owe this. I have to see it through. I don't know why.
Yeah, well, I was gonna ask, does she make you have to explain the movie when she wakes up? Because that happens with my dad and my stepmom a lot. Like they'll fall asleep, and then if he doesn't know the plot synopsis to give to her the next morning, he's in trouble.
No. She'll watch it like when I'm not around. She has like a list of things, or she just doesn't really care. But
okay.
And the captivation part of it though, isn't it whatever a person's passion is though, basically, right? Because you could be I'm captivated. What my passions are is like problem solving with like the inches and yards on a football field. I'm passionate about that. It captivates me where I will look at that and break that down to the simplest thing to make a play. So that's captivate. That gets me when I watch a football. It captivates me. Somebody could be captivated by butterflies. I think it's just like we said, their perception. I don't think there's any like main thing that people are captivated. I think it's easy to captivate with lights and music because hold on for a second. In music, they have why there's so many hits, and they literally pull a book out, a formula when they need a hit for somebody, and that pop song hit, and they write that formula, like use this sound, use these symbols, use this bridge, hit.
Yep.
So they can make hits every day if they wanted to. And that's why we had an episode about this before, that they signed AI. They signed AI as an artist. Now, that's where it's going. Yeah, not artificial intelligence, because they have that formula to just program. And then it can do all the work, and somebody doesn't have to tour, doesn't have to go to press things. They can just sit back at home and collect that, you know what I mean, that royalties and all that.
So let's break the word captivation, right? So you're captivated by something. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a movie. Have you ever stared aimlessly at a car wreck?
Yeah, like it's something that basically holds you.
It's captivating. You're curious.
Right.
There's a curiosity there. So I forgot the original question, but I mean things.
I was just saying
movies can be captivating because people are curious. There's many different reasons why, and then some people might not. Like my daughter hates movies.
Right.
But I was saying it in the men's because you brought up the thing where you said only, the media in the sense is kind of desensitized, and the only thing that could really generally get our attention. I think I was trying to more so say I don't think that's true, as you were saying cleavage, and what was the other thing?
Slapping you in the face.
Slap me in the face, right. And I was saying I think you can do that in a sense with movies or something that you're interested in it's like a slap in the face. Like when you see it, it's like you got slapped, you're like, oh my God, there's this thing, and then you have to pay attention to it because it hits you, right?
Shock value.
But if
anything
I'm
that's going to cause shock value.
Yeah, if I'm and Howard Stern talks about this in all of his books because he's the original shock jock. But I'm saying that like now, I'm going to say something, and we're best friends now, so you won't get offended. But do I want to, as a media company, capture Devin's attention and the 3% of the people that he represents? Or do I want to capture the other 97%? Who's got more money, 3% or 97%?
Oh, absolutely, 97%.
Yeah, that's where creative people fail at. you're going to get that niche. Very small percentage are going to be able to cater toward their 3% and write what they want to write, and produce what they want to produce, music wise, everything. Very small number, but that's why they have the pop stars and all of that, because they might necessarily not even want to put out that music, but they're songs that they always say, I didn't want to put out that song, but the B side of my tape is really what I wanted to do. So that's the difference in between that. I truly believe the ones that say, I want to go after the 97% are obviously going to have the most success. You know what I mean?
David, I don't want to cut you off, but one of our guys just commented, Wolfgang Moon, he said, beat plus hook squared minus ingenuity plus times predictability equals no money, no problem.
Mo money, mo problem.
Oh, mo money, mo problem. Sorry.
Yeah, that person is absolutely 100% right.
Yeah,
right.
Coach
but
is
I
right.
do
There's a
formula.
formula. Yeah,
there's a formula, and I think that's what everything is. We're being, like you said, it's totally on page with it. I'm just saying, like, there's so many things though in our everyday lives that can do that they ain't controlling. That people, like, I get captivated by, like, I control it, because like you said, you stare at a car wreck. Nobody made that car wreck happen, but you're like, wow, that's, you're captivated by it. And I think that's normal, like a brain just works like that, and I guess there's people just have their different things that captivate them.
There are, and shock is and I'm just going to equate it to something. So Coach and I, like, we're very similar. In fact, we're probably brothers and we don't even know what we're related to.
But, down the line.
Yeah, we're definitely related somewhere. So what we like to do is go to an extreme to make a point and then back people away from the edge. I do it all the time.
Right.
Go to the extreme right away to make your point. You've got their attention, and then you can back them off the edge. Media exists to keep you on the edge. They want you on your toes all the time. They want that, and they want the discourse because it keeps the conversation going. So what was that saying? There's no such thing as bad publicity.
Yes,
right.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Something like that. So that might be a stretch for me to equate that to, like, how the media works and why we are way we are. But it's all, again, I got to go back to my favorite thing, which is confirmation bias. So if I keep slamming you with things that I know you're like, I'm getting your attention because I know you're going to like that stuff. However, what I'm doing subconsciously to you is I'm feeding into your confirmation bias. I'm not giving you anything alternative. And I think that's a problem that we face. And I think social media has taken that to the extreme that we're in. I have friends on my feed that I can't post anything political because they're on opposite ends of the divide, and I can't bridge the gap.
They're waiting, bro. They're like, they got the keyboard, their phone. They're just like,
yeah,
you'll start a war on your timeline. I can't bridge the
gap. So like you, Devin, I'm fairly much in the middle. I mean, I do have opinions.
mm-hmm.
Some are conservative and some are not. Some are liberal, but I'm allowed to have those opinions, and it frustrates people when I don't agree fully down the party lines.
Yeah.
And then I go into, like, I'm like, why? The worst thing this country has is a two-party system, because the two parties, if people don't understand that there's collusion behind the scenes between the two parties, they would rather the other party have power than some third party have power, because they know that there's an agreement there.
Yeah.
That we could still go on with this fight of each other.
But I think did we maybe talk about this on your show? But the thing is, they see it so simplistically. That's the problem. Because a lot of people just see it as, oh, we elect the president's going to fix everything. But that's not the case. You got a Congress, you got all these different people in there, and they really make up the bulk of the problems and everything in there. And it takes work to really drain the swamp. They like to believe that there's someone like Mr. Trump or whoever's going to come in that office, and they're going to drain the swamp, which I think that's just a catch-all term for put the people that aren't for you in the office, pretty much.
So
right?
Draining the swamp, I think, does need to happen, to use his terms. However, that's never going to happen because we don't have term limits. We have career politics.
You got to get to Congress.
People go into politics as a career, and those in power, what do they want to do? Do they want to stay in power or give up their power?
Well, I mean, they might want to give it up, go work at Wendy's, or
exactly.
do something like that.
Those in power will do anything to keep their power.
Wait a minute, that's not what I said. No, I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
Yeah, you
Hey,
got
look,
to.
for the
That's not going to
record,
change.
yes, I would like fries and a chocolate frosty, and yes, I'm dipping my fries into my frosty every time. No
Hey,
judgment.
not
No
judging, man.
judgment.
Like I said, my sister, I don't really do it, but hey, more power to you.
It's delicious. Try it.
Okay, I sure will.
All right, I think we got to that point. You got anything, Dev?
I absolutely do not have anything, but David, you have been fantastic. I would give you, I want to give you like a little like golf clap round of applause, because we have had so many technical issues this show, like that. I don't think our technology liked you. I don't know what it was. I have no idea. Maybe you're like a Decepticon. You know how Decepticons and Transformers, they like made all those weird noises in like the new movies and stuff. Maybe
Yeah.
that's what it is, man. I don't know, but for some reason you were goofing up everything. No, I'm just playing.
No, I appreciate.
Selective EMF pulses.
Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah, appreciate you hanging in there and coming on. We'll figure what was going on, and we'll get you back on at a later date so we can have a straight through one like we're supposed to, bro. I
We're like
appreciate
straight
your
to the
patience.
shots.
You guys know I'll talk about anything. It's just what I do.
All right,
Right,
man.
like I said, but hey, you guys can check out David of the Perception is Reality podcast. I actually linked his page in the description, so if you can go down there, click it, go like his page, go listen to his podcast. You know, because I was actually listening to the one you were talking about, the woman who had that invisible disease, basically.
Yeah.
I know
Yeah, I brought
somebody
that
with
up,
that
yeah.
same condition. So very interesting, very very interesting. I sat there and listened to it while I was playing Madden the one day. So
See? Well,
an
there you
interesting
go.
that's an interesting thing.
And any of your listeners are welcome to be a guest. I mean, I have experts, but what I like to do is I like to talk to normal people who go through these things. That's what I really like to do because it's one thing to have an author or a podcast show or somebody like, and they're out there doing their thing, but really day to day in the trenches, what is X like for you that people think is different? You know, and you know that invisible illness is a great one. I mean,
Yeah.
Right.
so
All right, guys.
anyway.
Yep. Well, then we're heading out of here. Everybody that's tuned in, you guys are beautiful. Again, if you came through for the technical issues, we appreciate you. We love you guys. As always, stay beautiful. Take care of yourselves. Have a fantastic night. We're out of here. See you.
Bye.